about to record. All right, there. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you see he can go to all 8 squares. That's because the board is not around him, so it's not stopping him anymore. He can go to wherever he wants. So let's say you have a knight here and your opponent has a knight here. Which knight is better? Do you think your knight is better or your opponent's knight is better?
Your knight?
Yeah, and the reason for that is because it's closer to the middle. So it has more squares to go to. You see, it has tons of squares to go to, 4, 5, and so on, but your opponent can only go to 4 squares. So your knight is better. So if your opponent ever is like, hey, how about I give up my knight so that you can give up your knight? You don't want to do that because your knight is better. So in chess, the closer your pieces are to the middle, the more powerful they are. So usually when we move our pieces, we move them towards the center. And when I talk about the center, I'm mostly talking about these 4 squares. So try and get them as close to these 4 squares as possible. So great. So now that you know that pieces towards the center are better, let's say you want to move a piece. So in the opening, which is the very beginning of the game, you want to try and get your pieces out. Now, in the very first move, there's a total of 20 moves you can do. You have to choose one of those 20 moves. So you can move this guy once or twice. Each pawn you can move either once or twice. So that's 8 times 2, which is 16. And each knight you can also move twice. So that's 2 times 2, which is 4. So 16 plus 4 is 20 different moves that you can do at the very first move. Now, do you think it's better for me to move this pawn, this pawn, this pawn, or this pawn? Which one's the best pawn to move? Here's the center, by the way.
The one on the D file?
Yeah, the one on the D file. And why do you think that? You're right. Just why do you think it?
Because it can move to the center.
Yeah, it's the one that's closest to the center. So these 2 pawns are called the center pawns because they're the center ones. And those are our most valuable pawns. These 2 pawns are the side pawns, and they're the least valuable pawns. So some grandmasters, you know how a pawn is worth 1 point? Some grandmasters don't even think the side pawns are worth 1 point. They're like, oh, maybe it's worth 0.7, or oh, maybe it's worth 0.8 or something like that, even less than 1 point, because they think that it's so not valuable. You can't do much with them. But the center pawns are probably worth a little bit more than 1 point. Maybe they're worth 1.1 or 1.2, just because being in the center is better. So in the opening, what we want to do is we want to get out the 2 center pawns. We want to get out our 2 bishops, and we want to get out our 2 knights. The reason is we don't really care about the other pawns, and we want to get out the powerful pieces first. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. You're like, okay, well, you said to get out the most powerful pieces. Why don't we get out our queen or the rooks maybe? We don't want to get out the queen or the rooks because they're too vulnerable. The best way to say it is they're too vulnerable. So if you get the queen out really quickly, look, I brought the queen out. What he's going to do is he's just going to start attacking my queen. So let's just like this. He'll start attacking. He brings out his knight, and now he's attacking my queen. So since he's so valuable, I have to move him. I can't focus on developing anything else. I have to run with my queen. Okay, I'll move here. Whew, I'm safe. But now he does this move. And I'm like, oh crap. Oh no, I'm back. I have to do another move to get out of this. So I make this move. Whew, I'm safe. But wait, he does another move. And you see everywhere I go, he does a move. And now my queen keeps getting under attack. Meanwhile, he keeps bringing out newer and newer pieces to attack me with. So this is not good for me at all. I'm actually losing here because he keeps, look at all these pieces that he's brought out into the game. But look at all the pieces I brought out. I've only brought out these pieces. So it's not really that smart to bring out your queen because he can just keep attacking it while moving forward. Also, if your queen ever gets taken, then you just lose the game really quickly. So you don't want to bring out the queen. Like if I accidentally move my knight here, he will capture my queen, and now I just lost my most powerful piece. So we keep the queens and the rooks for later. For example, if I do this to try and bring out the rook, his turn, let's say he does this. It's very easy for the rook to get captured early in the game. And then I just lost a really valuable piece. So we want to focus more on these 6 pieces because they're powerful, but they're not really valuable. They're both powerful and they have low value. And so we're not worried about them getting killed as much as they can be used to inflict damage without us worrying about them too much. So that's why we bring them out. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. These 6, you guys should remember. This is a memory thing. So your 2 knights, your 2 bishops, and the center pawns. And he will probably be trying to get out these 6 too. Okay. So let's say we're actually starting a game. Let's say I'm white and he's black, and we're going to play a game. He or she is black. So the first move I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out one of these center pawns. Now, when I bring out the center pawn, I want to move it as close to the center as possible. This is the center. So let's say I choose this center pawn to move it. Where should I move it? Should I move it 1 square up or 2 squares?
2 squares?
Yeah, it's closer to the center that way. So I'll move it 2 squares up. And let's say he does this. Great, now I can move this one 2 squares up. And things are going pretty well for me. And then we can just continue with the game. What if he does this move? Do you think I can bring this 2 squares up anymore?
No, because the black pawn will kill the white pawn.
Yeah, so it's good to bring it as close to the center as possible, but make sure you don't kill yourself. So in this situation, don't bring it up 2 squares anymore. Okay, no worries. So let's say I'm like, okay, I want to bring this up 1 square. But there's actually a problem with bringing this up 1 square. And the problem is this bishop. So we want to bring out these 2 pawns, these 2 bishops, and these 2 knights. But if I bring this pawn up, can anyone see a problem?
The bishop can't go diagonally on its black squares.
Yeah, it gets kind of stuck behind that pawn, right? See, I can't move my bishop anymore because this guy kind of gets stuck. The pawn gets in its way. So it's important that I actually bring this bishop out first. And then I can bring this pawn up so they don't get in each other's way. Yeah. Do you think when I bring my bishop out, I should go to this square? Do you think that'd be a good idea to go to this square right here? No, why not? I see people nodding their heads no. Sorry.
Because then the white pawn can't go forward anymore.
Yeah. So once again, they just get in each other's way. And if this pawn can't go forward, this bishop can't get out, and it's just horrible. So yeah, just bring the bishop to somewhere where it doesn't get in the way of other pieces. So great. Now I'll bring out my knights, and then I'll bring out the pawns, and then pretty soon we'll be done. And boom, I have brought out all 6. And now the opening is almost over because I have brought out the 6 big guys that I wanted to bring out. Okay. Now, you don't need to bring it out the exact same way I did. A lot of people do it in different ways. That's what openings are. So you can bring the bishop, for example, all the way here, or you can bring out the knights first, or you can bring the knights out on the side. But what I recommend is usually just bring them as close to the center as possible, at least at the beginning. For example, don't ever bring your knight out to the side because of what we talked about earlier. Bring it towards the center. And then later on, when you guys get, much better at your games, then you can change it up a little bit. But for now, let's just learn the essentials. So yeah, maybe I can bring it here and I'll attack this guy. And that's the opening. I brought out all 6 of these pieces. Now, let me ask something about the opening. Let's say I move my bishop here and he pushes a pawn. Well, okay, now I have to move my bishop away. Otherwise, I'm going to lose the pawn. Sorry, lose the bishop, right? The pawn's going to kill me. And I move my bishop here. That wasn't really that smart of me because I brought my bishop all the way up here and then he attacked it and I moved it back. I could have instead just moved my bishop here right away. You know, I almost wasted a turn. I went all the way up there and then I went back. I wasted a turn and I also wasted time. Time is valuable in chess. It's like if you walk past your house and then you walk back to your house, why not just go to your house right away? The same thing goes here. You don't ever want to move the same piece twice unless you absolutely have to, but try and make moves that don't make you move the same piece twice. Like if I come here, he'll just attack me and then I'll move away. And that's just a waste of time. Do you think this is a good idea? If, for example, I move up and he does this, and then I move my knight, and then I move my knight back. Do you think that's a good idea?
No.
Why?
Because you're just going there and then you're just doing nothing and then coming back.
Yeah, it's a total waste of time. You see, you're just wasting your time. So don't waste time. Yeah, because by the time I've done that, I just wasted 2 moves. And look, he brought out both his knights and I have only 1 pawn out and he's just ahead of me. Let me give you guys another scenario. Let's say I make this move. Well, that's actually a pretty bad move because I want to bring out my bishop and this queen is now in front of my bishop. So eventually I'll have to move my queen backwards so that the bishop can go out. So I just wasted 2 moves by bringing the queen up and bringing the queen down. So that's just not smart. At the end of the opening, the first person to get all 6 of the pieces that I mentioned, so these 6, I'll highlight them again. The first person to get all 6 of them out, we say is winning the opening at least. So if, for example, I go here and they go here, let's just say something like this happens. I don't know. Okay. But how many of the 6 pieces has he moved? Well, he's moved these 2 center pawns and he's moved the 1 bishop. So he has 3 of his pieces out. And how many do I have out of the 6 pieces?
All of them.
Yeah, I have both my bishops out, both my knights out, and both my center pawns. So right here, I'm winning. I'm doing much better than he is. Doesn't necessarily mean I'll win the game. It just means so far I've been playing better than he has. Also, look, his pawn is in front of his bishop, so it can't get out. Where this knight, he can't go here and he can't go here because there's pieces there. So he has to go to the side. And overall, his king is in the way of his bishop. So he's just not playing well at all. All of his pieces are blocking each other and squished together. So that is the opening. Just get the pieces out, bring them towards the center. And yeah, don't move the same piece twice. That's just a bad idea. And also don't move pieces in a way that get in each other's paths. Yeah. You almost never want to move this pawn because if I move the pawn, then the knight can't go there. Same thing with this pawn, right? So yeah. Does anyone have any questions about that before I go to the next thing? No? Okay. It's not too difficult. Just remember these 6 pieces and bring them out in ways that don't hurt your game. That's it. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is what you do after you've broadened out those 6 pieces. So there's something in chess called castling. So castling is a special move that you do between a rook and a king. So the first thing you do for castling is you have to choose a rook, and a king. Usually it's pretty easy to choose a king because you only have one of them. So you just choose that king. The rook you choose, you have two choices. You can castle to the left, so you can choose this rook, or you can castle to the right, and you can choose this rook. Now, there are certain rules you must follow in order to be allowed to castle. The first rule, is, I don't know if I should. How about I first teach you guys what castling is and how to castle, and then I'll tell you the rules. Okay, so how you castle is this. You first choose a rook and a king. So I'll choose this rook and this king for this example. And then you take the king and you move it 2 squares towards the rook. So 1, 2. And then you take the rook and you swing it on the other side of the king. Swing it on the other side. That's the castle. It's all one move. You can do it to the left too. So if I choose this king and this rook, the first step is I take the king and I move it 2 steps towards the rook. So 1, 2. Then I take the rook and I swing it on the other side of the king like this. Is that clear? Yeah. So going to the left, your king will end up here. And going to the right, your king will end up here. Great. Now, the first rule for castling is the king and the rook that you have chosen, there should not be anything in between them. So look at this. To the left, there is a bishop. Do you think I can castle to the left with this king? No, because there's a bishop in between them. Can I castle to the right? Yeah, because there's nothing in between them. And if there is something in between them and the right, then I can't castle on that side either. Great. The second rule is the king and the rook that you've chosen, neither of them should have moved at all throughout the game yet. So for example, let's say me and the opponent are playing a game and I do this move and he does this move, and then I bring the rook back to the same spot. Can I castle to the right now? No, because my rook moved. But can I castle to the left? Yeah, because this rook and this king have not moved. Remember, I only moved this rook. Okay, same thing with this rook. If I move the rook here and he goes here and then I move it back, I still can't castle on the left side. I can castle on the right, but not the left. So if you move a rook, you can't castle in that direction. But if you move the king, you can't castle in either direction, because if I move the king, and I move it back, now if I choose this king and this rook, well, the king has moved, so I can't castle. If I choose this king and this rook, once again, the king has moved, so I can't castle. So that means that you can only castle a maximum of 1 time every chess game. Do you know why that is? Why?
If you
Because when you castled, your rook and your king has moved.
Yeah, the king has moved. So now there's no way you can ever castle to the other side or with anything else because your king is now moved. So you have to choose wisely which way to castle. So those are the 2 rules so far. The first rule is nothing in between. The second rule is neither of them should have moved. And there's a third rule as well. And the third rule is, the squares that your king are when you castle, none of them should be in danger. So look at this bishop. This bishop is attacking here. Do you think I can castle on the right side? Well, no, I can't, because if I go castle on the right side, what will happen is first I'll move to this square with my king. That's okay, no problem there. But then I'll have to move to this square, and this square is dangerous. So I'm actually not allowed to castle on the right side. You can't castle through a check, is what people say. You can't castle in a way that one of the squares is in danger. Same thing goes to the left. So right now it's fine to castle to the left, but let's say the bishop was here. Do you think it's okay to castle to the left right now? No.
No.
Look, the bishop is attacking this square. So if I castle to the left, what will happen is first I move here, and then I move here, and now I'm in danger. And that's bad. So you can't castle through a check. Same thing here. You see, the bishop is attacking this square, so I cannot castle to the right because I'll have to first go to this square, and that's dangerous. Which side do you think you can castle here? Left, right, neither, both?
Neither.
Yeah, neither, because if you go to the right, this square is dangerous. Oh no, so that's bad. And if you go to the left, which square do you think is dangerous?
Is the B square.
B square, this one?
Mhm.
No, because your king will never go there, right? Your king will only go up to here, and then the rook will be swinged around. So not the B square. The B square is safe because your king will never go there.
D1 and C2, and C1.
Not C1, because the queen can't attack like a knight. The queen can only attack diagonal and straight. But you are right about D1. So D1 is actually dangerous because if I go straight, oh no, I'm under attack. So is that clear? Yeah, okay. Good. And the last rule, the very final rule for castling is if you are in a check, you can't castle. So if I'm already in danger, I can't castle. And this one's pretty easy to explain. You just can't, like, for example, right now I'm in danger because he's attacking me. I can't castle. That's it. It doesn't matter if he's attacking the rook, by the way. No one cares about the rook. Hold on, let me change this to something that will allow me to castle. It doesn't matter if he's attacking the rook. You can still castle here if it's like this, right? Because you can just castle. But if he's attacking the king, then you can't castle. So you can't castle if your king is in check. And those are all the rules of castling. I know there's a lot of them. If you want, you can rewind the video once I send it to you guys. But yeah, it's once you get, it won't be too hard once you play a couple games with it and get a hang of it. So do you guys want to review what rules I taught you? Well, does anyone remember the first rule?
The first rule was that, was it the one that they have to, there has to be nothing in between?
Yeah, nothing in between king and the rook. Good. Does anyone remember the second rule?
That they can't move. They can't move before they castle.
Yeah, I'm writing in the chats. Rook and king that are castling can't have moved. Okay, anyone want to explain the third rule? So that one was the one that danger squares. So do you
The
wanna explain?
king can't castle through a check.
Yeah, the king can't castle through check. So if either of the two squares the king has to move to is a dangerous square, like some pieces attacking it, then you can't castle in that direction. So can't castle through check. And what's the fourth rule? The fourth rule is, I think, the easiest to remember.
You can't castle when your king is in check.
Yeah, so if your king is in check, you can't castle. If king is in check, can't castle. That's it. Those are the 4 magic rules of castling. If you abide by those 4 rules, you can castle. So technically there's one exception, but you'll never see it in a game, like ever. If you ever see it in a game, it will be magical. But yeah, those are the 4 rules of castling. Now, why do you think people even castle? Like the thing is, in almost every chess game, like they say 90% of high-level chess games, someone castles, or usually both sides castle. So why do it? Why would you castle at all? What's the point? Does anyone want to take a guess of why it's such a good move?
To make sure your king won't be in danger.
Yes, that's wonderful. That's rule 1. That's one reason. And then there's actually another reason too. Anyone want to take another guess? It's okay if you don't know. So the rooks right now are kind of separated. You see, there's a king in between them. And they're both in the corners. Now, we don't really like our rooks in the corners because, well, they're strong pieces. We want them in the center, like I said earlier, so that they can attack. When you castle, the rook comes out of the corner, and now you can bring it to the center. You see, before, when the king was there, you couldn't really bring the rook in the center because you can't go through a king. But when you castle, the rook is now on the other side of the king, so it's easier to bring to the center. That's it. But the main reason, like you said, was so that you can protect your king. Having said that, do you think it's smart to castle towards danger or away from danger?
Away from danger.
Away.
Yeah, you want a castle away from danger. So let me create a scenario here. You see, right now, black is doing really good. He has all these rooks. This is 16 rooks on the left side and actually no rooks on the right side. So do you want to castle to the left here or do you want to castle to the right?
The right.
Right.
Yeah, it's not too hard to figure out that if you go to the left, you're kind of going to get destroyed pretty soon. So let's castle to the right away from danger. And that's what you do in chess. As soon as you castle, if you're going to castle, you first have to look and be like, okay, my opponent has 1, 2, 3 pieces on the right side, but he only has 2 on the left side. So I'm going to castle to the left side because there's less pieces there. Same thing here. There's no pieces on the right side. I'm going to castle. So castle away from danger. Now, because there's so many rules, there's 4 rules you have to follow to castle at all. And the longer you wait in chess, the more likely it is you'll break one of those rules. So, for example, if you wait 30 moves, it's very likely that you will have moved a king or a rook, or you'll be in check, or the opponent will make some of the squares dangerous, like this will happen, and now you can't castle to the right. So the longer you wait to castle, the harder it becomes to castle. So usually we actually castle in the opening at the very beginning of the game. We don't wait. Sometimes people do it in the middle game. It's almost never done at the end of the game, the end game, almost never done. But when you castle, try and do it in the opening. So as soon as you can see an opportunity to castle, it's a good idea. So let me just go through the opening. Which pieces am I going to try and develop here? In the opening?
The middle pawns, the bishops, and the knights.
Wonderful. So I'm going to try and get these guys out. So let's just do it one by one. See my pawns out. Now my knight's out. Now my bishop's out. Now my other knight's out. Now my other pawn's out. And finally my bishop's out. And now, see, I can castle now. And usually this is what people do. They castle. You don't need to castle immediately. If you want, you can also castle to the left by pushing your queen up. And now you can castle to the left. But try and castle quite early. So it's okay to push your queen up and then castle to the left. Or you can right away castle to the right. Up to you. But try and do it as early as you can, because if you wait too long, someone will come and stop you from castling, and that'll be bad. So yeah, a lot of things can happen. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. Let's say this happens and I check him and he blocks it, and then I take, and he takes with the king. Can he castle now?
No.
He moved his king. What should he have done? Should he have taken with the king?
You should have taken with the queen.
Yeah, he can take with the queen. He can take with a knight. He has other options. So he shouldn't move his king if he doesn't absolutely have to. And the longer you wait, the more mistakes like that become common, or the more someone will force you to make a mistake like that, and then you won't be able to castle. So castle early. And once you're done castling, so now you're castled. The next thing to do, so let's say he castles, is, so remember at the beginning, I said, let's bring out these 6 pieces. Well, great. Now those 6 pieces are brought out. And then you castle, like we just talked about. And then you can actually bring your 2 rooks to the center. And once you've brought the 2 rooks to the center, because it's better in the center than on the side, now we are officially done the opening. Congratulations, you've made it past the first stage of chess. Hooray. So that's, now we're done with the opening. And we transition into the middle of the game. What's the middle of the game called?
The mid game.
Yeah, good job. So yeah, that is pretty much all I really wanted to say today. The opening is the beginning of the game. You want to bring out these 6 pieces, and then you want to castle as early as you can. And then you want to bring the rooks to the center. And then you're done with the opening. And now you can start attacking in the mid game. So fantastic. Now, when I say castle early, don't castle, don't take that too far to heart. For example, let's say it's my turn and I do this, sorry, it's my turn and no, let's say it's his turn and he takes my bishop. Do you think it's more important to castle or to take the bishop?
Take the bishop.
Yeah, of course. Like, it's important to castle early, but not if it means you're going to lose a piece, right? So have your priorities in order. When I say things like try and castle early, I only mean do it if you're safe. If you're not safe, deal with whatever problem you have first. So here, whenever he takes your bishop, you have to take back, right? You're not going to castle here because then he just won a free bishop. And it's a big win for him. So take back here. If he starts going after your pawn, so let's say something like this happens. If he makes this move, and now he's going after the pawn, well, you're once again, you shouldn't castle right now because he'll just win a pawn. What should you do in this position? So that he doesn't.
the pawn?
Yeah, you can give the pawn a protector. Sorry. Yeah, you can give the pawn a protector. Does anyone want to recommend a protector that will protect the pawn?
The knight can go.
Oh, this one?
Mhm.
You were thinking like this? Yeah, this knight can protect the pawn. Good job. And now if he kills it, I will kill him. There's actually, you could also do this. You see, it's protecting it. You can also do the pawn. Now, once again, it's protecting it. And there's also a way to get out of this situation without protecting it. There's 2 ways to get out of it without protecting it. So how do you get out of an attack? The first way is to protect. What are the other 2 ways?
You can attack, you can defend, and you can run.
Yeah, you can attack or you can run. Wait, attack or you can run. Yeah. You can also block. So since this is in check, technically you can't attack. I guess you can attack, but right now there's no way to kill this. You can block it. So if I bring my knight here, now he's not attacking this guy. He's attacking my knight. And I can't actually run away in this situation because if I go up, he'll just kill me. And I can't, can I kill him?
You can't, because if you kill the pawn, the bishop is going to kill you.
Yeah. So there you go. Okay. One last question before okay, let's say he takes this and I bring this up here. So now I'm giving him what's called a check. That's why he went red. That means his king is under attack. Now he has a lot of options to stop this. One of the options is he can run away from the check. Do you think he should do that? Do you think it's smart to run away from this attack with the king? I see people shaking a bit. The answer is no, you don't want to move your king. Why do you not want to move your king?
Then you can't castle afterwards.
Yeah, so instead of running away in this situation, you should try and figure out another way to block. For example, you could bring your bishop in the middle. Now he can't block. You can bring your knight here. And now, once again, can't do anything. So yeah, if you haven't castled yet, then that means you shouldn't move your king until you have castled. Because castling is just that good a move. Yeah. And the trick is, if you ever do move your king, it's very hard now to get your rook out and then your king back into the right place. It takes a lot of moves. You see, you have to actually do this. And then you have to move here. And this is what we call artificial castling. And what that means is I just did it manually. I did it one square at a time instead of doing it all at once. And it takes a lot of time. So yeah, stuff like that you have to watch out for. And that's castling. So that's, I think, the end of class. Does anyone have any questions about any of the things I've mentioned? No? Okay, so we have 4 minutes, and since you guys are ahead of the other class, I don't want to go too far in, but I do want to give some insight onto what we will be talking about next class. So does anyone know what happens when a pawn reaches the end of the board?
It can either turn into a bishop, rook, or a queen.
Bishop, rook, or queen. Is that it?
It can also turn to knight.
Yeah, so it can turn into any piece. Can it stay a pawn?
No,
No. Can it turn into a king?
no,
No. And can it change color?
no.
No. And those are the 3 rules. You can't stay a pawn, you can't what was it? Sorry, you can't stay a pawn, can't turn into a king, and you can't change color. So turning it into a black knight doesn't work. You come here and you make, most of the time you make a queen. Almost every single time you make a queen. But there are some times that you don't want a queen. And I'll give you an example and then I'll end class then. Let us say this is the situation. It'll have to be a weird situation because, okay. Let's say this is the situation, okay? Okay. Now, let's look at his situation. Can the black king move anywhere?
No.
No. Is the black king in check?
No,
No. Can this pawn move anywhere?
No.
Can this knight move anywhere?
No, because if it moves, the bishop will kill the king.
Yeah, so this knight actually can't go anywhere because if it does, the king will die because of this bishop. And the black is not allowed to put himself in danger. He can't put his king in danger. So this knight can't move anywhere. And final question, can this knight move anywhere? Yeah, the knight can move somewhere. It can actually move to 3 squares. What 3 squares can it move to?
it can move to D7.
Mm-hmm. Any other squares you were thinking? D7?
D6.
Sorry, did you say B6?
C6.
Yes, C6, and then one other square.
A6.
A6. So that knight can move a lot of places. Good, because if it couldn't, then black couldn't move at all. Now, let's say I push this to the end. if I make a queen here, can that knight move anymore? No, because if it ever moves now, my queen will kill the king. So we're in a situation where this pawn can't move, this knight can't move, and this knight can't move. And also the king can't move. And he's not in check. So what do we call that?
Stalemate.
Stalemate.
Stalemate. And now you have drawn the game. Even though the truth is you were winning. You were winning this game. So you don't want to make a queen right now. Because if you make a queen, you will draw the game that you were winning. Instead, what you should make is maybe a bishop or a knight, or just wait and don't make anything right now. Wait a little bit. But yeah, so sometimes it's best not to make a queen. But I'll talk more about that next class. So thank you all for class.